Our emotions give us the power, and the more you are willing to go into the depth of your emotions and feel things, literally feel them instead of setting them aside, and feel the pain, feel the joy, feel the frustration, and then work with it as a catalyst. Like anger is actually fuel. It can be a very positive fuel because you get so frustrated and angry. It's like, okay, I'm going to go do something about it. So that's a positive. And then when you are connected from your higher self, your pituitary pineal gland, to your oversoul, your higher self, to source, between those two, they link up right here in your heart. And then you have the power, and you are empowered to go do what you came here to do. So we need our emotions. They have been bred out of other civilizations. And, when you think about, I heard in one of your podcasts when you were asking, would you come back? And you said, absolutely. You said, I love this and I love it here. I'm with you 100%. We are the blue pearl. We are the magic out there in the cosmos, and whatever happens here ripples out into the other spheres, right? And so being here and the texture, I'm if I could live another 100 years in this body, that would work for me, right? Because I like where I am and I want to keep seeing things grow and expand. And I know we have the capability and the capacity to do that.
Welcome in. I am so excited about our guest today. You guys are absolutely going to be thrilled. But before we get started, if you're enjoying this content, go ahead and click that subscribe button and hit the notification bell so you don't miss any of our upcoming videos. And if you would rather listen than watch, we are now available on Spotify, iTunes, and all podcast platforms. So that's available for you. If you spend a lot of time in the car, tune us in. I think you're going to enjoy it. And the last thing I want to say before we get started is that if you want to keep track of what's happening around the planet, but it feels a little overwhelming, and I don't blame you, you might want to sign up for our Friday morning email newsletter. The link is in the description box down below. Every Friday morning, we send out a very short, very sweet, but informative email newsletter highlighting what we think are important events around the planet that you might want to hear about. It's super easy to sign up. It's super free. You just click the link in the description box down below. I think you're going to love it. And with that, I am so excited to welcome in psychic medium and medical intuitive, Candia Sanders. Candy, how are you today?
I am great. Thank you. It's sunny. It's beautiful here in Central Oregon. So it's a great day. And I get
you. You're in Oregon. What part of Oregon?
I'm in Central Oregon. I'm just outside of Bend.
Okay. Beautiful area. And thank you for taking the time to spend with us today. I'm so excited to ask you a ton of questions. I'm particularly fascinated by medical intuition, and I want to drill down into that a little bit later in the video, as well as talk about what's going on the planet. But first, I want to find out, how did this all start for you? Is this something you were born with, something you developed later in life? Tell us your story.
That's a good question. And it's, of course, I could stay here for about 2 hours just explaining that, but I'll give you the brief synopsis. I was born very open as a child. I could talk to animals and to fairies. That was my first introduction, about 4. But I knew as a child that I could communicate with cats and dogs. I had dreams of having pet lions. So there was a connection back to my past that I didn't know at that time, of course. And then I started just listening, paying attention, talking to rocks. Rocks would talk back to me. And then I started reading intuitive material when I was in high school, about 14. I started with The Search for Bridie Murphy, Edgar Cayce, Mini Mansions by Gina Sermonara, and the list goes on, right? Which opened it up, but really turned my world around was Seth and Jane Rock back in the 70s, right?
Mm-hmm.
I'm dating myself, but that's what is.
We have the same reading list.
That's what started me on. My mother, who is an amazing woman, she used to call me Sweetness and Light. That was another thing I remembered this morning. She took me to a psychic who was on the peninsula in the Bay Area. And she told me, I was 22, that was my college graduation present, that I would be a healer. And I looked at her like, you've got three heads, because I had no desire to be a healer. That was not my gig. I was into many other things. I have my degree in art history, did not go into science. And I'm going, no. But what turned my world around is my son reacted to his vaccines. And that changed my life. And I started going into every alternative modality possible. And then after that, I was injured in a ski accident. And, it's like, do you have to learn the hard way? I had to learn the hard way, unfortunately. And that accident, they thought I broke my neck, took years of rehab. But through the rehab, I kept asking 1,000,001 questions. And I kept thinking to myself, I can do this. I know I can do this. So in time, I was sitting in a chair and my neck was out, my nerves were aching. I was just a mess, honestly. And I just said, okay, God, I I need help on this. And I started visualizing my body in front of me. And I visualized, because I'd asked, like I said, 1,000 questions, started visualizing my spine. And then I started manipulating it and I'm going, oh my God, I can do this. This is phenomenal. The challenge was I learned through many mistakes too, because you don't realize how powerful it is until you do it wrong. And then my whole body went upside down. And I'm going, okay, I'm getting it. This is real. This is the real meal deal. And from there, it just went deeper. It went into the bones, which I loved working with bones. And then the meridians, which correspond to all the acupuncture points. And then into the organs, and then the chakras, and then it just keeps going. I look at 1,000,000 different things now when people come to me, and it goes into, for example, in the fields around us, we have to clear out entities, hitchhikers. There is a difference between the two. Implants, that's a very interesting thing that corresponds to MK Ultra and the implants that are put in today, that goes into the world today. So there are many different aspects that I look at when somebody comes to me and says, okay, I want a reading with you. And I go, okay. But what it does is it gives me a window into all the other things that are connected in their world, whether it's other lifetimes or the here and now or emotional. Usually it's emotional. So that got into the whole medical aspect, which I would have said, no, that's not my life. And
Yeah. I want to back up a little bit, because what came to my mind when I was getting ready and thinking about this conversation is how it felt for you as a young person to have such a different perception of reality than everyone around you, because a shared reality is often how we manage our environment. In other words, I see an apple, you see an apple, we both know it's a fruit, and I feel normal. I don't feel crazy. But when you see an apple and I see an apple and three people in a misty environment standing behind the apple, all of a
right,
sudden my reality is very different than yours. And how do I work in a reality where what I perceive is so different than
right.
everyone around me? How did you navigate that as a young person and be able to integrate the fact that you could see so much more than the rest of us and had so much more information? How do you work with that?
That's a really great question. That, from my perspective, one, I'm an only child, so I talk to adults a lot, so that helped. And the different friends that I would collect along the way, I would throw ideas upon. For example, whether it was, let's go outside and stare at the sky and see what kind of, magic we can see out there, from UFOs to landings. And we saw things, which is, I mean, I still have very acute memories of being a child and sharing that with others. They all kind of knew that I was a little bit different. I grew up in a very small town. I was also a leader, so people didn't look at me like I had three heads too much, because I would come up with an answer that was right, and then they'd go, "Oh, okay." So it developed that way. And fortunately, in high school, which is a very turning point in anyone's growth, I had three close friends. The four of us grew up together, and we started expanding our reading together. There were two especially in that group, and we would share books. So I had other people to throw ideas back and forth with, which really helped. Unfortunately, neither one of them continued, but it set the tone for me in high school, which then kept me moving into the metaphysical worlds. So
Yeah.
I was very fortunate. Not so much in college, there weren't the connections, but I still would go back to my spiritual work because it kept me grounded.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
That's what.
So you had the experience, and when you said that you had the back injury, but you felt like you could do it, that you could fit, I understand that kind of misty sense of an ability that you can't quite put your fingers on. But once you start going down that path, you realize I can do this, and I've done this before, probably in multiple lifetimes. First of all, when you perceived your spine, was it a visual? Was it just a sense? How, when you are working as a medical intuitive, how do you see someone's energy field? Is it that you just sort of get a feeling that there's something muddy over here, or do you actually see it in front of you?
It's a combination. I'm going to backtrack onto that question because what I've discovered through the years through my own navigational system is that we come in on a frequency, what I call the soul ray, and it is my window in to a person, and then it's like it's a doorway in, and I'll explain this more, and then I can start seeing the body. And the soul rays, there are 12 of them, and honestly there could be 100 of them, but in my world there are 12, which gave me a window into seeing what that person came into this life to do, to explore, to see. For example, I'm going to use you as an example, if that's okay. When I look at you, your frequency around you, in addition to whatever your astrological chart is and everything else, 16 personalities, blah, 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 is that I look at you as that you are an indigo ray with a halo of blue. What does that mean? That means you came in as a visionary and you have the communication on the outside, like out at Pluto in your solar system. And so that is a frequency that you came in to expand upon, which is exactly what you're doing, which is beautiful. It's fantastic. You are exactly where you're supposed to be. So then with that, that's my window in. And then I open up that doorway once I find out the soul ray frequency, and then I can pull up the body and I see things in terms of almost mechanics. For example, I'll give you an example of an ankle I needed to help repair. And I saw it with, screwdrivers and widgets and wires and fixed it all up. That's kind of how I see things. I don't necessarily see it in terms of how someone does surgery and you cut it open and you see the skin and you see the heart pumping. I see it completely different. I see it much more mechanical, but I do see the bones in terms of the spine and how many. What I used to do in terms of seeing the body, it would take me 20, 30 minutes. Now I can do it that quickly. And seriously. So if I were to look at your cranial bones as an example, because they move, our cranial moves, and we get locked up a lot. Sorry, I'm moving my hands, but that's what I do in the back of our skull. Then I can go in and I'll go, and I'm not going to work on you right now, but I look at it in terms of going into the garage and you have a fuse box. I look at fuse boxes. And so I created a system of 36, 12 systems, 12 fuses within the emotional body, the mental body, and the physical body. Spiritual body is pretty good. I can go into other lifetimes that might be impacting it. I can make sure that the person is connected to their oversoul, their higher self. So I look at that. I look at, again, like we talked about, whether they have entities or implants or what's in their field. But this is how I see the body. And then I can go through the endocrine system and I look at those and they're just circles of light and energy for me. And if they are blocked, they'll show up much more muddy and dense that need to be cleared. And then those will go into other lifetimes. They will go into something in childhood, something that needs to be cleared out. And so it's not at all like you would think a body is when I see it.
Right. So when you identify an area, let's say that's muddy in a person's body, do you innately or intuitively know what type of energy to send to that?
Yes. Yeah, actually, yes. Because, for example, like with the spine, we'll start with the spine because that's usually where I start. Once I get the fields clear, I can go in and tap and say, okay, C5 is off. C5 relates to sugar as an example. So, oh, that person's eating too much sugar. And then if there's a muscle related to that, then I'll see it as kind of a twisted area instead of being smooth the way that a muscle should be. The chakras are, again, more muddy. And so then I go in and just clear it out, reverse the polarities, clear out the energy. And then here's a key for listeners is if you know you have energy in your fields that are, disruptive, then you have to pull them out with love and light and transmute them so that when you release them beyond your solar system, beyond your Pluto, and release them back out into the world, they are going out with love and light rather than, anger, frustration, sadness, grief, whatever. And so that when you're releasing these emotions, they go out into the world as sparkles of light instead. So that's how I do it. So if I see something that's muddy, I'll go in and clear it out with love and light.
Wow. This is so fascinating for me. So let's go back to your son who had a vaccine reaction. Walk us through how you worked with that. And I imagine because of the strong emotional connection there, you learned a lot about your skill during the course of that.
Well, and at that time, this is what's interesting. This was an opportunity. I look at everything as not disaster, but as an opportunity. It was an opportunity for me at that time to open up my skill set that obviously I signed the contract on when I came into this life to say, okay, this is what I'm supposed to do. Okay, I signed the contract. Well, at that time, I didn't know all what I term my magic. Didn't know it all. But what it did is it set the tone for me to learn about essential oils, flower essences, herbs, vitamins, the list goes on. So I've learned every modality. And if those show up in somebody's field, I add those in. With my son, he reacted. It took me 2 years to get him clear because, again, I didn't know my magic. And he still has some lingering things from the vaccines. And I had 2 animals that also reacted to their vaccine. So I have a story going with vaccines, right?
Yeah.
So I've learned a lot. And yes, it was very emotional. It was very trying because he was just an infant, right? Mm-hmm. And he's now 33.
Yeah, and married.
And married and 2 babies.
Yeah. So you probably learned more about your magic then. How did you step out then? I mean, were you hiding your skills kind of? In other words, not talking about it at a cocktail party. It's like, what do you do? I'm a medical intuitive. I'm a medium. When did you kind of say, okay, this is who I am and I'm going to step out into the world and be that?
That is really a pivotal point in my life because my children's father, very conservative, did not like what I did, or he couldn't handle it. Let's just put it straight up. He couldn't handle it. So I was getting sicker by the moment. Literally, I got down to 96 pounds and I finally said, I can't do this anymore. I love you. I don't like you. And I have to leave. I have to do this. So that was back in 2003, 2004. And that's when, I'd already been doing it. I'd been giving readings off and on my entire life. But this whole medical aspect was not something that I consciously thought about, but everything threw me in that direction and I had to do it. So obviously I ended up in a divorce and had to say goodbye. Good news is 20 years later, we are good friends, which is good.
I have heard that story from female people with gifts repeatedly, that at the time the spouse just wasn't able to work with it. But as time went on and, the divorce happened, as time went on, they end up being friends. So it's funny how they'll grow into the understanding of what this really is. And I'm happy that happened for you as well.
Thank you.
Yeah. So is most of what you do now, Candia, medical intuition, or do you do just as much mediumship and psychic work as working with the physical body?
Actually, you know what? I don't think there's a reading now that doesn't include some kind of alignment, energy work, a tune-up that I call. You want to come in for a quick tune-up? Is that because everybody wants to feel better. We are bombarded by so much on the planet right now. And I'm very opinionated about that. And I'm kind of a food Nazi, and I'm kind of a vitamin Nazi. I'm all about staying young, healthy, vital, full of radiance. And it's a challenge today. So there's not a reading today that doesn't embrace that at some point within the reading. But I get people for all kinds of readings, right? All kinds of things.
Yeah.
So
Well, you're speaking my language. I'm quite opinionated on the level of health on the planet right now and all the toxins in our environment. I don't really feel like we can just eat the food and drink the water and not take care of our bodies and be healthy anymore because there's so much going on the planet. So let's kind of take this opportunity to segue into, because I know that you have such a deep grasp of what's happening on planet Earth right now. Let's kind of talk about that. And then I always like to talk about solutions, or at least the question I get so often is, what can I do? Okay, I'm aware now of things that I wasn't aware of 5 years ago. It's not what I thought. This planet is not what I thought. Now, what can I do? So, what do you have to say about that? Just about what's happening on the planet and how we can really deal with it as a collective?
there's so much going on. I became more aware of this back in the 90s. And my intro into that was David Icke. He opened my eyes and I knew I could hear the truth. So that when 9/11 happened, because of my gifts, I had different ones. I know this is going to be kind of longer answer to your question. I had people come to me and say, you know what, with your skills, you could go in and do a little magic on Saddam. And I'm going, no, 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 not going to go into dark magic at all. And I don't believe in that. I didn't believe in the story that we were being told then. There have been so many things since then. I mean, we can go back literally to the 30s and 40s and the 50s. We have been, and further back. I mean, we can go back 10,000 plus years and on, that we have been in this cycle of oppression. And that's really difficult for a lot of people to even believe. They all think that the government is working for us. They think everything that is happening is for us. I think that's great and wonderful. However, I love the Pollyanna perception. That's a great thing. However, when I look up into the skies and we are being laced with chemtrails that send me around, that's one of my pet peeves. I get just cranky. So what I have done, and this is what I would recommend to everyone, because it's one of those things that we can make a difference. And this goes into our foods. Bless your water, get filters for your water, watch your food, read labels. I mean, I've been a Nazi on this for a very long time. I am adamant. I am just the cheerleader on this, is when you see chemtrails, literally in your mind, see them, take your hands. I do this. I'm a skier. And so I go out there and I'm looking at all the chemtrails. So one of my jobs that I think of is that when I go up the chair, I look at the chemtrails, I bless them, and then I gather them in my hands and I, bless them with love and light, and then send them out and change the frequency so that by the time I'm on the chair again, I want to see how much they've dissipated, because there is a difference between contrails and chemtrails. So you can tell a contrail, they disappear, the chemtrails hang around and they let the chemicals in. So that's what you can start to do as an individual, is when you see things that are awry, and the more aware and awake you are, the more you're going to go, oh, that's not so good. Is that instead of going, oh no, I can't do anything, you can do a lot of things. One, when you go into a grocery store, see the doorway as a doorway into love and light. So you bless it. You put light above it. You go into the store, bless the food for everyone. Send love and light over it. Transmute it with love and light. If there are any toxins you feel gathered in your hand, let it go. Bless it with love and light. Back to transforming it into the frequency that we desire, because there is so much. There's so much going on with the government. Don't trust anyone within the government. You're going to laugh. I see this image, is that these people go into government and I know they are going in with a great attitude, and then they get there and it's like a Batman movie. They've got their little microphones in front of them, and then the mist comes out, and all of a sudden they go, oh, brain dead on us. I swear. So the things that we can do is start at the local levels. And I know you have talked about this. I have been involved. I had to take a break from it because I was so involved, but local level areas here in Central Oregon, we have had some groups that have done some really good things, becoming more involved with your city council, the city planners, the mayor, just keep going up the list, write letters, get involved, sign up, participate. I was involved with Move Oregon Borders for a while. I've been involved with, the Constitution, and I can keep going on in the whole political. We don't need to go there, but that's what we can do individually. Start with the groundwork up, and then work with your water principalities. Talk to them about what they put into your water. A friend of mine today is going, and they're talking about shutting down some of our electricity, and because they're talking about wildfires. Well, they need to talk about the fact that we've got chemtrails, the fact that we've been hit with, see, I can go on and on, with DEWs, direct energy weaponry systems that hit California, Oregon, Washington, and Hawaii. So we have the power. We can't keep giving our power away. And once we tap into who we are, we're strong, and that we take action, which is very important. We can't sit and do nothing. We can think about it. We can set the intention, and then we start moving into the reality that we want to be in. We want to focus on all the good things that we want to create, and that's how it starts, is at the ground level.
Yeah. We're exactly on the same page. You and I are. This is so funny for me. And we have not talked before this video. This is the first time we've talked for the viewers out there. Here's the thing I think about, Candia, when I think about what's playing out on the planet. In my opinion, there's clearly, we could label it good and evil, or we could label it service to self, service to others. I prefer that. When you're talking about dark energy, I see that as someone that is interested in service to self instead of service to the collective.
Yep.
So if that's the dynamic that we have here on the planet, well, we signed up for it because we decided I want to be on Earth at this time. And there has to be, in other words, if there's going to be a villain, there's got to be a victim. And we're clearly playing the role of being put upon or having these circumstances like the chemtrails, like the food, like the water, where we're having to perceive it and then decide we don't want to do that. We don't want to participate in that. That's not how we want it to be on the planet. Is it just a matter that do you think it's that we incarnated on the planet to really hone our skills of discernment and personal choice? In other words, my BS meter now is so much more in tuned, even from the last 5 years, because by golly, we've had so much, so many lies. But it's really, really served me in the sense that my inner guidance system right now is so good. It is like 100%. Do you think that that's what's behind all this, or is this that, or do you think we incarnated on the planet because Earth is interesting and it's challenging and it's fun, and then this other energy came on and kind of messed with the game? Where are you on what is actually happening behind the scenes?
I would agree with all of that. I think it's all of it. I don't think it's one or the other. I think we are living in a world of, as you know, duality. It's negative and positive, not good and evil in my book. And we need to have those characters in our world. This is the game like I said, we signed up for. I mean, can you imagine Darth Vader knitting? It wouldn't work. We need to have that as an image for us so that we can step back and really identify what works for us. And I think that's what's happening. Rather than the good and evil, yeah, we can go there, but I don't. I'd rather see as negative and positive. And those people all signed up, those souls all signed up for those roles, because on some level they have some karmic connection to this play that they need to work out. So, I look at them, I bless them, I thank them, I laugh. I can get angry too, but how fabulous is that we have this opportunity to really dive into our emotions, because emotions are what give us our fuel. They give us our power. And if we didn't have that contrast, like night and day, as we wouldn't appreciate the other side. And you're spot on in the sense that it makes you more clear. You line up more clearly and you embrace your power. And, it's basically kick ass and take names. It's like, no, not going there. I'm going to go over here, and basically turning your back on what doesn't work and facing the light for what does work. So I agree with all of that. I think we're here for fun. We're here to to lighten up, to have, step into our joy, step away from the depression and the anxiety that is riddling our planet with so much, in terms of discord, and it all comes back to us. So I agree with you 100%. It's all about us learning discernment. And some of the souls might not learn it this go around, they'll learn it another time. So ironically, even though it is as crazy as it is right now, I really see it is exactly the way it's supposed to be.
Yeah. Well, you're better than that at me, because sometimes I get so frustrated. Here's a question I have that I ponder a lot, and I'm sure you've heard this before. When we talked about a shared reality earlier. Right now, I feel more than ever on the planet, and I'm in my late 60s, so I've been here a while. I don't see a shared reality on the planet. It is as disconnected and disjointed as I've seen it in my lifetime. In other words, that apple that I perceive is not an apple to someone else. People see things so differently. And I also, so take that piece of information, that's my opinion. And then I've also heard that there's going to be a real shift in the population on the planet. So what I'm wondering is, because reality, perception of reality is so different right now, if we're not going to split apart as a collective, and the group that has the one reality is going to go over here and kind of work on that vibrational frequency. And the other one is going to go over here and work on that. So what I perceive, or I wonder about, is are we kind of aligning with the reality that we need, that we want to spend more time working in? And that's how things are going to really kind of break apart on the planet.
That is very deep, by the way. That was a great analogy. I totally got all the pictures of what you're saying, because it's that, and I think it's more, ironically. On one level, yes, I can see exactly what you're talking about in terms of us splitting, in terms of, we've heard the Two Earth series, or synopsis, where we do split. I can see that happening, where there's a trajectory that goes one way, and then there's this trajectory that goes this way, and we will create that reality. I totally can buy into that. That works for me. And again, I also believe that there are no absolutes other than, universal law on specific things. Other than that, I think it's so much bigger than that. We like to put things into boxes. So I know that we have multiple timelines. I know there are many parallel realities going on at the same time, in addition to all of our lifetime experiences where our focus is somewhere else. So, is it going to be two worlds? Possibly. Is it that we're going to, you and I'll use us as an example. We focus on the reality that we want, that we move over into a parallel reality, and we are then developing what it is that we are focused on. Now, that is where I resonate the most, but I'm not going to say that the other two worlds scenario isn't a possibility too, because that's the one thing I have learned over my 6 decades, is that there are many, many possibilities, and that you can say it's this way and then it's going to be this way. And so I've just learned to be much more flexible. In fact, you were talking about that in one of your videos, which I loved. I'm going, yeah, I'm Gumby. I am as flexible as they come, because every time I say that it's an absolute, I get reminded that, nah, maybe not so much. So I think your question is valid, and I think that your scenarios are valid, and I think all of it's true, because from your perspective, what you see is real, what I see is real. So I can't say that that's not going to happen, because I can see where the negative reality, that group of those souls on this planet that are creating that real reality, are going to spin off. But that's like a parallel reality that's moving this way, and it will work itself out through time and space and eternity type of thing. And those of us over here, we are creating that reality. We are moving on a regular basis. In fact, my invitation is to start paying attention to the little details. For example, this is something random, but let's say you put, I have reading glasses. So let's say I put them here, and I know, because I'm very good about remembering where everything is, and they're not there. And all of a sudden they end up in another space. I'm going, okay, I just moved over a reality. My pears, I had one in my refrigerator. When I came home yesterday, I had two. I'm going, oh, we have babies growing. Okay, great. Reality shift. So parallel, moving over, but you have to pay attention. It's easy to just be kind of in a coma, but the more you pay attention, the more you notice these little things. And I'm going, cool. Okay, no chemtrails today. Okay, cool. I moved over into another reality, another reality, another reality. And and every time I do, I watch people shift and change, and how their responses are and how they see and view the world have changed. So it's like I'm tapping into the higher versions of themselves because I shifted into a higher version of myself by moving over. So to answer that question, I think all of that is true.
You said something that I think is brilliant, and I'm gonna really bring it in and hold on to it. You said there's just unlimited possibilities or unlimited realities, and that's so true. And I know that I find myself saying it's going to be this or this. We're either going to win or we're not going to win. It's going to be this or this. That's not true. There's unlimited potential. Which leads me into the fantasy I have about humanity, Earth humans, and then we'll talk about who's on the planet that aren't necessarily Earth humans. I am excited, Kenny, about the possibility of humans being freed from all this. Oh, my girlfriend calls it a beat down. Where we're sprayed, where there's toxins in the food, where there's societal pressures that don't enhance the human. It's not good for our soul. So we've got kind of this conditioning that was created for us to learn when Earth humans are freed to really step into their creativity and their ability to manifest and follow that emotional passion they have. I think we're going to be almost an unstoppable civilization because
Absolutely.
we have so much potential. And you brought up the emotional component. I know that a lot of other races have intentionally bred out emotionality, but I think that that's almost one of our superpowers because it's emotion that drives that innovation. It's emotion that drives that desire to create. It's emotion that drives that connection between each other that then creates this whole new thing. So it's almost like that emotion may have been looked at as a liability, but I think it's really an asset.
I think it's a total asset. I wrote about it. I do a monthly newsletter, and I talked about that yesterday. It's our emotion. Our emotions give us the power. And the more you are willing to go into the depth of your emotions and feel things, literally feel them instead of setting them aside, and feel the pain, feel the joy, feel the frustration, and then work with it as a catalyst. Like anger is actually fuel. It can be a very positive fuel because you get so frustrated and angry. It's like, okay, I'm going to go do something about it. So that's a positive. And then when you are connected from your higher self, your pituitary pineal gland, to your oversoul, your higher self, to source, between those two, they link up right here in your heart. And then you have the power, and you are empowered to go do what you came here to do. So we need our emotions. They have been bred out of other civilizations. And when you think about, I heard in one of your podcasts when you were asking, would you come back? And you said, absolutely. You said, I love this and I love it here. I'm with you 100%. We are the blue pearl. We are the magic out there in the cosmos, and whatever happens here ripples out into the other spheres, right? And so being here and the texture, I mean, I'm if I could live another 100 years in this body, that would work for me, right? Because I like where I am and I want to keep seeing things grow and expand. And I know we have the capability and the capacity to do that. And this is not talking with all the implants and technology. I'm talking about our own super science.
Mm-hmm.
And that's where I see us going if given that opportunity. So to kind of go back to your question, so many people are talking about the ascension is going to be overnight and things like that. I'm a bit more pragmatic. Been doing this for a very long time, been around on this planet for lots of years. And not just this lifetime, but lots of them. And I really feel that, if you think about Earth history, a blink of an eye is 1,000 years. Now, I really feel what's going to happen, my intuitive sense on this. And this is where time gets squishy because, again, time has been breaking down and breaking down. What in my lectures, I used to say, okay, 24 hours, we're down to 18. And then I said, now we're down to 12. Well, now I think we're down to 8 hours in a day, because time has been compressed and it's because it's breaking down. So predicting is a little more challenging than it used to be. I used to be able to go, okay, September, but now it's like, well, okay, September-ish. I feel that we're in this transition of breaking free. This goes back to your original question. Breaking free, I see like 40 years because there are so many systems that are so infested with, back to that negative versus pod, with the negative, that we need to shift, that we need to because a lot of the people working within those systems don't see it. They don't know it. They're caught in their blinders and their earmuffs. They don't know it. So I'm not putting any blame on anybody, but they will wake up. And so I feel that it's going to take us, 40 years. Humans don't change in a blink of an eye unless we're hit by a meteorite and we wipe out the civilization. I'm not worried about Earth at all. She's fine. She's good. But it's this evolution of humanity. And I do feel it's going to be this, unshackling of the yoke that you talk about, that will be 40 years and then it will start branching out. That does not mean that things aren't going to start shifting now. As an example, 2026, this is when I put this together, was 2020. And you probably already know what my opinion is on 2020 and subsequent years. So then I put the years into numerology. And in 2026, we move back to a 1 year, because we are now, next year is a 9, we're in an 8 year. And the 1 year is new beginnings. And I really feel that's where things are going to shift, where more people globally are going to, this filter is starting to shift and change. So I feel very positive that right now, things are crumbling. I'm going to go for sideways. I don't see America totally crumbling. I don't. Because if America crumbles, the whole world crumbles. And the powers that be are not going to allow that to happen because they still need us. So I'm going, we're going to use this to our advantage. This is a good thing, because there are so many good people within this country that give and share and help, that we're not going to be taken to zero. We're not going under the waves again. I've been saying that for decades. We're not going under the waves again. We don't have to go to that extreme. We need change, but I don't believe we have to go that far and just totally dissolve everything to zero. And that's my feeling. That's my opinion. I know there will be others that say we're going to go, point zero, point blank. And I'm going, I'm not going there. That's not going to be my parallel reality, because I have grandbabies now, and I don't want it to go to zero. And I want them to be living with an outhouse and digging up worms. And I don't want them to, that's for fun, but you know what I'm saying? So that's how I see things playing out. So I do feel that we're in this transition, and we are unshackling ourselves one person at a time. And you are doing this by having your podcast. I did that for years, what you're doing in terms of teaching. And I applaud you for doing this, because again, what I said earlier, you are that indigo Blu-ray, which is, you're a visionary communicator, and you are doing exactly what you're supposed to be doing, which is
Thank you.
Wonderful.
Thank you. I appreciate that. So let's talk about ETs. And which is fascinating for me, because I guess I don't want to share my thoughts. I want to hear your thoughts about, is this ET involvement on the drama that's happening on the planet? Are they actually living here? Were they here and they left? What are your thoughts?
Yes. yes.
All of the above.
All of the above. Again, I have been connected since I was a child, so I know that they are here. I've never questioned that. Kind of something I would invite people to do is to watch the old Stargate shows, Stargate and Stargate Atlantis. Those first couple of years, they are spot on. That's all based in truth. They bring this information in to give us, you can say, I want that reality, I don't want that reality, but they feed us the truth in different ways. So go watch those. Those are really fun. So in terms of the shackles, I do believe that we have had that level. I'm going back to the earth. Oh, that's my circle. Is that we've had that level of, there's the reptilian, we can go there. There's a reptilian influence. There's a gray influence that has then, those are the masters behind the political leaders. We've got a lot of puppets to the upper above management, which I feel have been off-world. Now, what I do feel, though, I do feel a lot of the off-worlders are no longer here. And I think that's why there's so much chaos, because the people at the top of what we see to be the government, where are my handlers? What am I supposed to do now? I don't know what to do. So I think that's why, it's like all the bees running around without a queen bee. They don't know what to do. So that's how I feel things are. So I'm seeing this as a positive. It's like, okay, good. Now we've kind of removed that layer. So we're on to the next layer. So I feel that we are being helped by many different races. I do believe that. I have to share some personal stories if you're okay with that.
I would love it.
I live up on a plateau in Central Oregon. And as I drive down to get to the main highway, there's an area over in the Cascades, because I got the Three Sisters, and then there's Washington and Mount Jeff. And Jefferson, I'm looking over there one day and I'm going, why are there lights over there? And, logical, because I'm driving. And, I said to somebody, oh, well, that's where Culver is. Culver, another small town. No. And I've watched them, and it's a big triangle. It's a mothership. I reached out to James Gilliland on it, and he said, yeah, it's pretty cool. So I described it. And so it shows up from time to time. And then they take off. I've taken pictures of them. And then in January, because I don't see them all the time, but when I was in January, I was driving to Portland, and I'm out in the Indian reservation, and I'm going, oh, it's Christmas. It's past Christmas. Oh, they have Christmas lights. I'm going, we're out in the flats. Those are some big lights. Somebody put in some big Christmas lights. That's really and I'm going, oh my God, it's not. And he just kept moving with me, and then it went across the highway and followed me all the way up to Mount Hood. And I'm like this, I'm going, oh my God, oh my God. I'm like a little kid going, oh my God, this is so exciting. And I'm screaming at the other people, do you not see this? Because everybody else was very calm. And I'm going, maybe they don't see it, because it was right there. So my sense is Arcturian, because of my healing abilities and all that. It just has come to me. It's not like I've gone and taken a bunch of classes and learned that way. It came to me. So I feel mine's very Arcturian. And I do feel the Arcturians, the Pleiadians, there are many layers with anyone. I think there are, or with any species, there's always the positive and the negative. But I feel that those that are helping us now are on the side of light. That's and I'm running with it. I'm sticking with it.
Yeah, I feel the same way, exactly the same way. And you know what? We should meet at East Setting Ranch sometime. Wouldn't that be fun?
I would love it. You know what? I have to share again. Isetti Ranch is about an hour from where I have an off-grid cabin that I live in the summertime, and it's about an hour away. So wow. You can come stay with me.
We would have a ball.
And I know we have an audience here, but I have to share this, because how I got connected with you is my sister-in-law. My sister-in-law had started watching you, and she goes, I think I'm going to put your name in. And, I let it go. My life's been very full. And then I got this intuitive hit to go through my junk mail, which I never do. And I saw the subject line that said psychic family, which I thought was odd. Okay. So I opened it up, and it was an invitation to join your show. And then I checked on your show. I go, oh my God, we've been friends forever. I mean, that's how I saw it. So I'm going to share. I have to share this if you don't mind, because I get all excited. Just before we connected online, I got this hit about Kimberly, and I have to share this, is that I'm getting goosebumps on this, is that I've known her. We've been friends. I knew that, but I got this very clear imagery of a lifetime at the end of Atlantis, right at the fall, supposedly at the fall. And there were a group of us that would meet down on the ocean. And we were on the islands, and my husband had been captured, but I was working with a group of people to get people off the islands and to spread them out into the world, kind of like the old Donovan song. We went to the four corners of the earth, Atlantis back in the day. For those who don't know the song, it's a great song back from the 60s. Anyway, there were a group of us that would meet out in the ocean. And the reason we would sit by the water is that the technology they had could not override our intuitive thoughts, because otherwise they could read us. So we'd meet by the ocean because of the negative ions of the ocean and the air and the mist. And you were part of this group. And I feel very strongly that this was right before, and we knew that we had hit that threshold where we knew we couldn't stop it anymore. We knew it was coming, so we were doing as much as we could under the waves, almost under the umbrella of hidden secrecy, so that you could then take ships out to the Four Corners. And I see you going west towards the Mayan Peninsula, to the Mexican Peninsula over there, and helping seed that civilization over there. I happened to go east and went to just north of Egypt, and my two sons, which are my sons today, went and helped seed Egypt at that time. But you were a part of that. And when I saw that today, I go, this is why we're doing what we're doing, so that we do, you get into goosebumps, so that we are not going under the waves this lifetime. So you and I have this very strong connection. I thank you, Jeannie. Jeannie, thank you, my sister-in-law, for connecting us. There are no accidents. I mean,
and what's interesting is when you were telling that story, before you said I went to the Mayan Peninsula, I knew where you were going to say. I knew it.
Yeah. Almost, and of course the land masses were very different. So you could honestly say to the Tulum area, but even then the land masses